Welcome to Voices Amped. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellie Clark.
And I'm Vanessa Becker-Weig, and we are your hosts. Voices Amped is a place for us to share space and lift the voices of artists, activists, community leaders, and organizers, all of whom have inspired us and our work.
For any ampers who aren't familiar with our work, we are Voices Amplified, formerly known as the Girl Project. You can learn more about our arts advocacy work or support us by going to voicesamplified.net.
If you want to put a face to a name, watch our interviews on YouTube by searching and subscribing to Voices Amplified.
Thanks for listening, and remember, be curious, be courageous,
take up space, and make some noise. Welcome, and thanks for listening. This is Voices Amped. I'm your solo host today, Vanessa Becker-Weig, and today is apparently the Vanessa Show, woo-hoo-hoo, because our guest today is the one and only writer of our intro song, Vanessa Davis.
Yay!
So Vanessa Davis was born and raised in Canada by classical musician and music teacher mom and jazz musician dad. She was raised studying classical music, piano, voice, music theory with a touch of violin and classical guitar. She moved to Kentucky in 2005. She has written for piano, guitar, voice, strings, and any combo of those instruments, but mostly guitar and voice. She has also written pop and rock, folk, country, bluegrass, classical, singer-songwriter, jazz, and blues. Wow, that's incredible, Vanessa. She plays piano, guitar, sings, and dabbles in the violin and ukulele.
Dabbles.
That's a lot. That is really great. I mean, I didn't know how much you had written, all of those different styles. That's really,
yeah,
really,
and
really
some of them
something.
should have an asterisk with dabbles beside it as well. Like I've got like one bluegrass song, and then I've got some songs that have some touches of country, and some that are like straight up country, but they're not my main genre by any stretch.
Yeah. Well, but you've dabbled, and so that's pretty incredible. So today we're gonna shake things up a little bit in Voices Amped. We're not gonna do our normal kind of pattern. So we're gonna have a bit of a concert today from Vanessa Davis, a home Zoom concert. Woohoo! So she's going to start off with a couple of songs before we even jump into any questions. Is there anything that you want for us to know about these two first songs that you're gonna do?
Yeah, so these first two songs are on my first and right now only EP that I've released on all of the listening platforms. And what's really cool about the way the EP was put together was it was done during quarantine. So it was done in the 2020, all in home recording studios. All of the parts were recorded in people's houses or in little studios that they had borrowed, and we edited and shared files all digitally. I never met face to face with any of the musicians or the mix master, except the mix master. I think we had 2 sessions towards the end when things were opening up that we met in person to do some editing. But it was all done virtually, including the album art. I never met the guy who did my album art for me. I did my own photo shoot. I had my mom send me a picture of grandma's painting that I wanted to use. She took a picture on her iPad and emailed it to me, and that's part of the cover art. So it was a really unique experience, but I wanted to highlight 2 of the songs from that EP. So the first one is called Livin', and I wrote it during quarantine, and I wrote the second verse first because it was kind of this, COVID was new and big and scary, and it was this, well, what if I did get sick? What if it affected my singing voice? What would I do? And so the inspiration for Livin' was the pandemic of 2020. So yeah, so the first song I'm gonna play is Livin'. should grow old, if I should grow old, wanna know I was living. If I am a star burning in the night, gotta be a light while it still can shine before I'm out of sight. If I should ever get sick, voice getting weak, fingers not quick, well, I don't wanna look back, see that I could have picked up the slack on the time I was given. If I should get sick, if I should get sick, wanna know I was living. If I am a star burning in the night, gotta be a light while it still can shine before I'm out of sight. When I'm at the end of my days, guitar case is closed, breath fading away, I'll know I used 'em up good, the way an artist and storyteller should. When I get to the end, when I get to the end, you're gonna know I was living.
Woo!
Thank you.
That was beautiful. That got me a little emotional. Wow.
So, and I'll mention on the EP, it has violin and cello on it.
Oh.
So that's something to look forward to.
So speaking
Yeah,
of that, is that available right now?
yeah. So the EP is called Pretty Little Cabin. I at some point I'm gonna have to run and grab a poster. I didn't think to do that, so I can show you the cover art and like how it's
Yeah.
got my grandma's painting on it and stuff. But it's on all your favorite streaming places that you listen. Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify. It's on my YouTube channel, Vanessa Davis Music. So
Great.
it's out there in the world.
It's out there. So make sure that you listen further. I know I'm going to. Wow, that was really beautiful. So
Thank
what's
you.
our next one?
Our next song takes a complete 180 from the sentiment of that song. This song I wrote before quarantine, but when I was writing for the EP, I realized that it was going to be a piano led album. Because piano became my quarantine instrument. Because normally when I'm out gigging and stuff, you're not taking a piano with you. So when everything shut down and I was just in my house, I really took to writing for piano. So this song I originally wrote for piano. I later created a guitar version, which is the version I normally gig with. But it was first written for piano. I think I wrote it in 2018, and it's just a fan favorite, so I decided to put it on the EP. It also has its own mug. I don't know if this goes the right way or if it turns it backwards, but it says, I started drinking coffee just to spite you. So I wanted to like put that guy up there as my little prop today because
Love it.
I love those mugs. And that's the only song that has its very own merch for the song. Also, I wore my coffee shirt today.
Yes.
Um, I love my coffee. What can I say?
It makes me
But
want to drink coffee right now. I want to have some
the,
coffee.
the first verse of this story is true because I never used to like coffee. And I got into it to spite an ex-boyfriend because I wanted there to be something about me that he didn't know. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to take up drinking coffee. And now I like love coffee. The rest of the song is completely fictional. But it got me on this tangent and kind of exploring just like the weird things we do after breakups to try to like prove to ourselves and everyone else that we're okay. So
That's great.
all right. So this is called Long Long List.
All right.
Oh, I started drinking coffee just to spite you. I had to shake my drinking habits up. I started drinking coffee just to spite you, 'cause you'll never ever see me drink a cup. Every sip tastes like licking a turtle. My stomach ties in knots and I can feel the cream curdle. But I started drinking coffee just to spite you, 'cause you'll never ever see me drink a cup. I got a long, long list of things I gotta do to prove that I'm over you. Oh, I got my tongue pierced just to show you that there's a part of me you'll never ever see. I got my tongue pierced just to show you that this time I'm doing something just for me. I can't say my essence and it's getting infected, but it's not half as painful as being rejected. Oh, I got my tongue pierced just to show you that this time I'm doing something just for me. I got a long, long list of things I gotta do to prove that I'm over you. Thanks for the idea to change up my tattoo, the one I have of you that says your name. Now it's got a giant flaming X running through, and you'll never ever know it's not the same. Your memory won't hurt so much when I'm thinking of you every time I retouch. So thanks for the idea to change up my tattoo, but you'll never ever know it's not the same. I got a long, long list of things I gotta do to prove that I'm over you. Oh, I made friends with your girlfriend just to show you that I'm over you and really doing great. I made friends with your girlfriend just to show you that I wish you both the best and there's no hate. Seeing you together makes me throw up in my mouth, but I'll be right here waiting when the whole thing goes south. Oh, I made friends with your girlfriend just to show you I'm over you and really doing great. I got a long, long list of things I gotta do to prove that I'm over you. I got a long, long list of things I gotta do to prove that I'm so
Yes. I love that. It's interesting after hearing that on piano, because I've definitely heard it with you playing it with guitar. There's a little I don't know, it just makes me it feels like it belongs in a musical.
I get that all the time. Everyone's like, so when are you gonna write a musical?
I mean, yeah, that's super, super fun, which actually leads me. Yeah, go ahead.
The EP actually sounds kind of like a collection of songs that maybe could be on the stage. The first song is called My Own Story, and it just kind of like opens up this introduction that takes you sort of through the other songs, and then it bookends with Livin'. Livin' is the last song,
Mm.
and so it's kind of like the beginning of the story to the end of the story, and then a little bit of cheek and fun and drama in between. So yeah, it definitely has some musical theater leanings.
Fun. I'm gonna have I well, now I've got to listen to it. And I is the musical theater thoughts in that definitely leads me to some of my first questions here, which is
Yeah.
how we know each other as Miss Vanessa and Miss V.
Yes.
And
I
there's
picked Miss V because Miss Vanessa was taken.
and there's still it's so funny because both of us have some crossover students, and they're always like, well, the other Vanessa, or so I tell them
Yeah.
often about Miss V and Miss Vanessa.
There's
So
still a,
we
there's still a batch of them that call me Miss V. They're starting to. I mean, there's one that just graduated high school who still calls me Miss V, and she might be one of the
the
last
last ones.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so funny. So we met when we were working together with musical theater kiddos doing
Yeah.
performing arts training. And so and now we're continuing on in different ways in doing that. And what do you think, well, let me ask you this. What motivates you to work with young people?
I mean, I think my own experience, like I look back and when I'm teaching these kids, I see like the steps that I took to learn what I know now about music and about my own voice as an instrument. And it's a really cool thing to be able to look back and be like, oh, I went through those difficulties of not knowing how to do this with my voice or not knowing how to do that so that I could problem solve so that I could help the next generation problem solve. So I mean, we people always talk about like giving back, but it really is. It's like, hey, I've been there, I've been through that, I've been through those struggles and those difficulties. I've gone home after singing lessons, cried, thrown myself on the bed and vowed that I would never sing again. Like I've done that too. So to be able to just encourage young people to use the gifts that they have, and um, it's just I really love it. It's really fulfilling. When I have a student that has a breakthrough lesson, I'm celebrating like all
Yeah.
week long. I'm so happy. I'm like, yay, they finally figured they had that breakthrough moment. They figured out what they needed to do. And so, yeah,
Yeah, which is why your studio is always full,
my
those
studio is full. Yeah.
yeah, and I've always appreciated and enjoyed watching you have those celebrations. I think well, I mean, I'm curious about your experience with the craziness of COVID, especially being a vocal coach. I'm curious about some of that experience, and also and how if you found that much of your lesson time might have been spent mentoring and and just talking through some of the experiences that these young people were going through at the time.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm so fortunate in that I work in the arts and yet the shutdowns didn't shut me down.
Mm.
Um, the only thing that changed was that my lessons went to virtual, which was still very doable. And now that I've done that, I will always be able to offer that option to students. So right now this summer, actually, I'm very surprised. Like 99% of my students, there's one kid who's taken virtual lessons. All of the rest of them have come back to in person. But during the shutdowns and even when they were opening up and I was giving them the choice, it was really great to actually not have to lose any momentum. I had to adapt. Obviously, we ended up doing a couple recitals virtually, but it all worked out. And I found out that these kids are super good with technology.
They are.
They knew how to use the Zoom better than I did, and
Mhm.
they would all like raise their hand if they had a question, and they would mute themselves before I'd have to ask. And then I realized, oh yeah, they've been doing this for school. Like they
Right.
they they are already accustomed to this um this culture shift. They
Mhm.
did really well. The thing that I actually observed was the hardest for them was when they went back in person. When they went back to
Mhm.
their classes and to their school, I would have kids having meltdowns in their lessons because they're having social anxiety because they're going back to school next week. And
Yeah.
so, for my kids that were stressed out or feeling overwhelmed or having a lot of anxiety, I would say to them, you know what? Let's forget that we've got a recital coming up. You've still got plenty of time to prep. Let's forget, and they had no auditions at the time because, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
Let's forget that this is a skill that you're trying to work on, and let's just let this be your happy place. Like, let's today just sing or play, whichever discipline they were studying, because it's fun and because you want to and because you get to express yourself. So forget about the technical stuff. I'm not going to ride you too hard on your technique. Breathe wherever you want to in the phrase. Let's just have fun and express yourself and let those feelings out. Like, let's choose
Yeah.
something angsty to sing today or whatnot. So yeah, it was a really interesting shift, and it really brought some of those relationships actually closer. And I think once you establish trust with a kiddo, you have better lessons because they're not afraid of messing up.
Yeah.
And you really can't succeed in anything until you've gotten okay with messing up and with not being perfect.
Yeah. Mm, that's great. Um, so I'm curious, when did you start writing all of this, music, bluegrass, country, all of this?
Well, that would have been like when I moved to Kentucky. Well, I grew up in a classical and jazz home, so country and bluegrass was like not acceptable forms of music. It was music in quotation marks.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Kentucky and actually like saw the roots, um, I was like, oh, I get this now. I get this music. I was kind of underexposed to it growing
Yeah.
up. So then I experimented with writing a little bit. I did the Nashville Songwriters Association International program for a year or two. It's called NSAI. It's run by the people who own the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, and
Hmm.
they have just this community of writers and stuff like that. And you get to have one-on-one like Zoom meetings with experienced writers, and they give you feedback and stuff like that. And so I dabbled in more country um, because they were mostly country. They were like, you can really
Mhm.
write and submit whatever genre you want, but I was like, let's take this opportunity to do some country. So that was a couple years ago. That was when I really kind of branched out to those genres. But because of my dad being a jazz musician, I have a jazz and a blues background. And I started writing some blues when I realized that I wanted to be able to go to a jam, like just a public jam session at an open mic, or there's a blues jam here in town in Lexington, and be able to have something original to throw on the stage and be like, hey guys, this is a blue in E. And all the blues musicians know what that means,
Yeah.
and they can play along. So it's like I need to have a couple songs like that in my tool belt. So me experimenting with genres that are sort of outside of my norm were to get tools in the tool
Mm.
belt that I could collaborate with other people on, or just experience what it's like to write a country song, because it has this storytelling honesty to it that I really wanted um, to use to better myself as a writer. As far as writing goes, I started, I want to say like accidentally when I was like 8. The first thing I remember doing is taking little musical theater songs that I knew or that I had been learning, and writing different words to them and making them like a different song. And that was my first kind of sort of creative um, expression of writing lyrics. Then I remember around 10 years old starting to write for the solo piano. I was getting, better at my piano lessons. I started piano at 5, and by about 10 I was starting to write piano solo stuff. Um, then I wrote a few songs for piano and voice in my tweens. When my songwriting really took off was when I started playing guitar. So I was fortunate that I went to a fairly artsy school. We didn't have anything like Scapa where you auditioned to get in and were able to major in the arts. I think being able to have that in town is just a huge blessing and
Mhm.
opportunity for these kids.
For
But we
sure.
did have a high school that was known for being particularly artsy. And so when we moved to the city, I lived in a small town until I was 12. Then we moved to the big metropolis of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Um, 250,000 people, so comparable to Lexington. And we didn't really even know what area of town we wanted to move to, and my parents moved us to this area of town because of this school.
Mm.
So my sister and my brother and I got to go to a high school that was really arts oriented, and I took classical guitar class, and I took it all through high school. And I picked up this instrument and started playing it, and I was like, how have I never played this before? It just came so naturally to me. It just felt like an extension of who I already was. It was like discovering you had another limb that you didn't know you had, and you're like, what's this doing here? So that's when my songwriting really started to take off. And of course, that's around the same time too, where you've got a little boyfriend and then he breaks your heart. And so that provides you with plenty of material.
Oh yeah.
So, so I started writing the breakup songs as they were happening and as I was learning guitar in ninth grade, basically, as a freshman.
Incredible. Do you still ever play any of those
Oh yeah.
songs?
Oh, I call them back sometimes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
So I've been thinking about doing just like I've had this idea for a while, and I will do it at some point where I have like a live stream series where I take you through the decades of my writing. So I would start with the high school years and play you like those first breakup songs. And it's, the first songs aren't super structured, which is both like you look back and you're like, oh, I didn't know the difference between a verse and a chorus. But it's also kind of freeing because it's just like I was just writing what I was feeling. I had no idea that structure was a thing. So
Yeah.
now I teach songwriting as well. So now when I have songwriting students, that's usually where we start, like, oh, by the way, structure is a thing, and it's great that you have all these thoughts and feelings, but let's put them in order and make it a little easier for people to grab onto.
Yeah. I will be ready and waiting for that because I'm super excited to hear
I'll have to
freshmen.
learn some things. But luckily, I was diligent even at that age. Now, I didn't type them all up back then, but I did write out all of my words with chords over them. So I still have all of my like
That's
original. I
cool.
have this big binder. It's like a 3-inch binder, and it's got all
Uh-huh.
my songs and all my. I was big into writing poetry as a teen as well. It's got all my songs and poems in them and with all of the chords, so I can go back and kind of brush up on them and relearn them at any time, and I'm going to.
That's so cool. I love that. Do you have I know one particular musician that inspires your work because we share a fondness for Jewel.
Yeah.
Who are some of the other musicians that inspire your work?
I mean, that really depends on the season and what I'm looking at as an influence. Lately, I've been really influenced. Totally lost the name, which is ridiculous because she's like the biggest superstar in the world. All of a sudden, I'm on the spot
Um,
and I'm like, don't know that name. Taylor Swift.
okay.
That's the one. Just just in case they want to edit that, I'm going to start that sentence over again.
Okay, let's
Maybe
hold for just a moment.
yeah.
Pause. 5, 4, cut Kennedy. 3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
So my influences really depend on kind of the stage of life and what type of music and whatnot I'm hearing around me. So lately, I've been really influenced by Taylor Swift's new stuff. The two albums that she put out during quarantine
Oh
are
yeah.
absolutely amazing, and just they're so poetic. Like she is so good with words. And what's really interesting about those songs is that she took this approach where she reached out to a friend who writes a lot of riffs and does a lot of instrumentation for musicians, and she was like, um, hey, let's write some stuff together. You send me some riffs and I'm going to write songs to them. And I went, I wonder if I could do that. And so I reached out to a local musician around here. I don't know who you know and who you don't, but his name's Dylan Bourne, and he just writes phenomenal riffs on guitar. And I was like, hey, want to do the Taylor Swift thing? Where I think it's like Aaron Dessner, I think is his name. I'm like, you be Aaron Dessner, I'll be Taylor Swift. Let's write together. And so that's the newest season that I'm in, and some of those songs are going to be revealed in due time. But that's
Ooh.
like, that's my newest influence. But I've gone through. I mean, there was a season where I was really influenced by Alanis Morissette.
Oh.
Jewel's always been a big influence of me because is she pop? Is she folk? Is she
Mm-hmm.
country? Is she singer songwriter? Like she's just got all of those elements, and I love not being boxed in like that as well. And then like there was a Michelle Branch kind of season as well. So I would say Jewel is my longest standing influence, but lately I've been really influenced by the new folksier Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I would. It's so interesting to me because I really enjoy your music. I think you know that, but all of those, everyone you're influenced by, I'm a huge fan of. And I was
That's
not a,
amazing.
yeah, I was not a fan of Taylor Swift until recently, like
Yeah.
her new stuff. So, yeah. Well, speaking of music, we're going to hear some more from Vanessa
Yay.
Davis. Is there anything you want to tell us about the next couple of songs you're going to sing?
Well, I'm going to adjust the camera angle and I'm going to grab the poster that I was telling you about. So, quick little break here. For the people listening to the podcast, they won't be able to see this, but I will describe it. And I've got to turn the angle so that it's not shining because this is under glass. But this is my EP cover. And this cabin, my grandma painted in 1984, and you can see her signature down here somewhere where it has her name and the year that she painted it. And then the sheet music that you see here, this is the poster version. On the EP, you can see the music notes going through a little bit here, weaving in and out. And then on the poster version, you can see more of it at the top and the bottom. That is the actual sheet music from the middle song on my EP. Here, let's see if I can get it
Beautiful.
shining. And so I contacted someone that was recommended to me. His name is Derek Price. He's here in Lexington. I've never met him, but he put the EP together, the EP cover together for me. So I did the photo shoot. I took this picture of myself. I got one of those little clicker Bluetooth
Yeah.
thingies to take pictures remotely, and I just tried a bunch of poses, and then I checked back with my camera. I took them on my iPhone and chose a pose that I liked, and then I sent him the sheet music. I sent him the picture of me that I wanted, and I sent him the cabin of my that my grandma painted, and I said, "This is kind of what I want it to look like. I want the sheet music to kind of like weave in and out, sort of thing." I sent him some examples of other things that I just found images of online, and he came up with this design that I just really, really love. So
Yeah.
I think it's super pretty. And any of the listening platforms that you go to, you'll see the like picture art of the album cover.
Love it. That's beautiful. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
All
All
right. Well, we're going to
right.
turn it over to you to play some more for us.
Okay. So this set of two songs that I'm going to play for you, I wrote recently. I between semesters, I like to take a week or two off. So I've been teaching. I finished up my spring semester and then I took 2 weeks off and then started up my summer session. So I have summer students that are coming and taking lessons as well. And I've always wanted to send myself on a songwriter's retreat. I've seen other musicians do it and it just looked like a great idea. And I had kind of these backlogged ideas of songs that I wanted to write and that I just hadn't had a chance to sit down and write. And so I borrowed a friend's loft house out in the country, and I went and I just spent 3 days out there writing songs. So the two songs that I'm going to play in this set, I wrote back to back on the same day. I broke a personal record. I wrote 3 songs in one day, and then my brain hurt for weeks after that. I did write a total of 4.5 songs on that retreat because there was one that I had written everything but the bridge, and I just needed to finish up the bridge. So I wrote that on one day. And then I wrote these 3 songs on one day, and these are the solo acoustic ones. The other 2 that I was working on were in collaboration with Dylan, and so he had sent me some audio files, and I spliced them the way that I wanted them and created the loops where I wanted them and wrote and finished those on the other days. So this first song, I've had this idea for a long time of like, what must my ex-boyfriends think when they hear songs that are about them? Do they know that they're about them? Do they get mad? Do they think it's kind of funny? Like, I have no idea. And so I had the idea for the chorus in my back pocket, and I always meant to write it, but I mean, I've been married for almost 11 years now, and so I haven't had a breakup in, longer than that. And so I was like, well, it always felt kind of weird when I would think about like, well, how am I going to write this song? I don't have any current situations to draw from. And then I actually did have a parting of ways with a friend in 2020, and that filled in the gaps for the verses for me. So this is called "You'd End Up in a Song." Never break a songwriter's heart, baby. That's no secret. It's something everyone knows. Oh, if you make a songwriter cry, baby, well, that'll just keep her quick on her songwriting toes. Oh, immortalized, and that's a fact. Now I pick up a pen each time you ask me. A cryptic message, angry text, red letters spelling out what to write next. Ooh. So why are you pouting? Why is your face so long? You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. Oh, now you're shouting that I've done you so wrong. You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. You're a bull in a china shop, baby, burning temper, horns that push me away, yeah. You should know that each little display is a beacon, a spotlight on what I say, yeah. Eternalized like ancient history, I pick up a pen to solve the mystery. You mince words, you're oh so clever, but my words they'll remember forever. your face so long. You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. Oh, now you shouted that I done you so wrong. You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. You knew it all along. You'd end up in a song.
Woohoo! I have to give a little woohoo since there's not an audience here live to give the woohoos and the claps. I loved that. I loved yeah. That's just something that I'm not sure, like I think people think those things, but the way you articulated it, I love. You knew when it ended, you'd end up in a song. That's so great. Love it. Love
Thank
it.
you. I've had that, like I said, I've had that hook line for years, and I finally just wrote it. And yeah, I like it how, I mean, it's got this kind of like flowy feeling, but it's a little cheeky too.
Yeah, for
Like
sure. Just a little cheeky.
got a little sass.
All right, what's the next song you have for us before we do some more questions?
The next song has a lot of sass. So between the three songs that I wrote in the same day, I can't even tell you which I wrote or completed or whatnot first. So they're the triplets. And the funny thing about triplets is when they come out, they all look the same, and it takes a while for them to have distinguishing features. So when I wrote them all, I remember driving home in my car from my writer's retreat and going, I can't keep them straight. Like one of them has this chorus, and then like I would find myself singing the chorus of one song and then going to the verse in a different song and then the bridge in the other song. And so it took them a while, and I really had to sculpt them into having their own personalities because I wrote them so quickly back to back. But I think now they definitely have their own personalities, and you would never know that they were written all on the same day. But this one is mostly fictional, but it comes from, I wrote the chorus when I was really frustrated. I came home one day from a gig, and I had a few friends that said they were going to be there, and then they just like didn't show up, didn't text, didn't anything, and I was like, I'm so mad, I'm going to write about this. And so I keep like phone voice memos and lyrics and stuff like that in my phone, and so I voice memoed this chorus, and then I wrote kind of a fictional story to go along with it. That's the other thing Taylor Swift has done for my writing lately, is teaching me to be okay with the song not being 100% based in truth or in personal experience. It's whatever the song calls for. So I saw like an interview where she was talking about a particular song on folklore, and she was talking to her collaborator, and she was like, "Is it okay that this like song is partially about a relationship, but then partially about a business partner, and like and then one part fiction where you know?" And he was like, "Yes, of course it's okay. It doesn't have to tell an accurate story. It's like Big Fish, right? It doesn't have to tell an accurate story of how it actually happened. It's write the song the way it wants to be written." So most of this has never actually happened to me, but when I play it out, people don't need to know that. You're getting the scoop right now.
Yes. You heard it here first.
Yes, you heard it here first, folks. This is, like I said, mostly fiction, a little bit of truth, but very relatable because as arts people, I know we have a hard time sometimes getting people to come to your stuff, and that feeling of like of just being disappointed when people don't show up for you. So this is called Bayless Celebrity. Wondered when you'd surface again, my fair weather friend. At the end of my set, said you'd be there, and yet didn't see you at all. If you will recall, you were much too from the A list on to column B. The names of the people who ain't there for me. The no show never know when they're gonna come and go. You know, so you can move it on over to the end of the line with all the other name dropping fools I can't find on my list. You knew the risk and you'll see you're nothing but a Bayless celebrity. Nothing but a Bayless celebrity. You know I'm over being nice. I roll the dice with you every night and pray that I'm not wasting my own time. You take your time and work the room. You say I'll get there when I get there. Well, that's fair. But if you don't care, in the meantime, in the meantime, I moved you from the A list on to column B. The names of the people who ain't there for me. The no show never know when they're gonna come and go. So you can move it on over to the end of the line with all the other name dropping fools I can't find. Down my list, you know the risk and use me. You're nothing but a Bayless celebrity. Oh, nothing but a Bayless celebrity. Oh, nothing but a Bayless celebrity. Hey, oh,
Nice. Love it. Love,
Thank
love,
you.
love. That's so great. Man,
So sassy.
it is sassy.
I'm not used
Love
to being so sassy. I'm usually such a sweet person.
it's really sassy, but you know what? Yeah, I mean, I love it so much.
Thank you.
So much. So
Gotta
is
get
that
that safe.
recorded
Like I
yet?
gotta say.
Is
What's
that
that?
is that one recorded yet?
No, it's
Not
pretty
yet.
new.
Oh, sweet. You got to get that one recorded. Yeah, I love it. Good stuff.
Thanks.
So I'm curious about, I have been participating in a few virtual workshops with people from all over the world, and it's been really cool and eye-opening. Um, and one of the things that I have been learning is how the differences in support for the arts in the various countries. And I'm curious, coming from Canada, just kind of if there's any differences in the art scene and support for the arts compared to the United States.
Much more support for the arts in Canada. I'm sorry to say, America.
That's
I
what I've heard
love
from
America.
everyone.
Yeah. Just it is just part of the culture.
Yeah.
I grew up taking classical music exams, and that's very much like everyone knows what those are, and everyone knows that program. It's very widespread and very oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Unified,
Mm,
in that, like, when you take lessons, for example, you move from Toronto to Vancouver. Now you need to find a new teacher, new piano teacher or singing teacher, and they're like, okay, well, what level RCM do you have? And you're like, oh, I've got my level 7. And they're like, oh, okay, I know exactly how good of a sight reader you are.
mm,
I know exactly what intervals you know how to identify. I know what level of difficulty your pieces have been. So just the way that it's so structured to set people up to succeed, just in the arts programming. And then you talk about, or we move into artists. I mean, it's just harder in the States because this is where music is just booming, and like if you make it in the United States, you make it anywhere. As far make it, I mean, what's make it? But I mean, if name recognition happens for you here, it'll happen anywhere. Whereas in other countries, it's more like some of those musicians may end up breaking through in the United States. They'll probably have to move there, but you have all of this pool of local talent that are famous in Canada or probably in a number of countries that you've never heard of in the
Mm.
United States. But there's this hometown support kind of feel that's nationwide as far as the Canadian artists go. And then there's just as far as the styles and whatnot, it's so eclectic. Like the town that I'm from, I mean, I consider Saskatoon my hometown. I lived there from the time I was 12 until the time I was about 21 or 22 when I moved here. And Saskatoon has a jazz club. It has a blues club. It has, you know, these places that if you're a jazz musician, you've got a place to play. You've got musicians to network with. There's so much support there. Here, there's a blues club. I've been there. It's awesome. The guys there are amazing. But it's so underground, like people don't even know that it's here.
Yes. What is the Blues Club?
Oh, I would have to look up the name and let you know.
Okay.
There's clips of me on my social media playing there, and I
Uh-huh.
probably have. I know on my Instagram I have a clip of me playing an original blues. I think that I played
Mm.
with them. Um, but there's just an awareness. There's also a lot of grants, and I know that there are here too. But I feel like there's so many more grants in Canada. The arts are just really prioritized there,
Mhm.
and here they're kind of like, hey, the arts are extra. You're on your own, kid. Finger guns, you know?
Yes, yes,
Am
as a
I
matter of
preaching to the
fact.
choir?
Yes, for sure. So what with all of that said, what brought you to Kentucky?
Interestingly, kind of an arts program, but not really. My sister moved here for an arts program. She was doing her master's at the University of Kentucky in opera theater. Her classical voice instructor in Canada knew Dr. McCorvey, who runs UK Opera Theatre down here, and recommended that she come down and have some lessons with him. And she really liked the University of Kentucky and all
Mhm.
that, so she applied to do her master's here. She ended up coming here in 2004, and I came down and visited, and I loved Lexington so much. It just really felt like home. So
Mm.
there was that sisterly pull, but there was also like just I could see this being my hometown. It actually feels a lot like Saskatoon. I think we should be sister cities. I'm not gonna lie. Saskatoon and
Interesting.
Lexington
Huh.
are they feel very much the same in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. So I'm curious, what do you do inside of a quarantine or outside of a quarantine? Hopefully we're past quarantine time, I hope.
Hopefully.
Um, but what do you do for self-care? Like when it just all gets to be too much, what do you do?
The biggest thing that I have done for self care, which I highly recommend, is learning how to say no to things and valuing your non-work time, having work-life balance.
Ugh.
So there have definitely been times in my life where I've been like a workaholic and that's been the first priority. And now I'm like, well, I am, like I've said before, I'm so lucky that I'm self-employed. Like I run my own music studio and I'm my own agent when it comes to, you know, booking gigs
Yeah.
or whatnot. So for example, yesterday someone contacted me and they were like, can you do something tomorrow morning? No, it was 2 days ago in the evening. Can you do something tomorrow morning before noon in Corbin, Kentucky, which is what, like an hour and 45 minutes away? And I was like, no. Now I could have. I could have. It was a song that I would have had, or a couple songs I would have had to learn, drive myself there, perform them, and then drive back. And it paid pretty well. But I was like, that is a lot of last minute stress to put on
Yeah.
myself, and that turnaround is huge. I was like, I'm just gonna say no because I don't feel like putting myself through that stress.
Yeah.
So just learning how to not be afraid to say no to opportunities, and to be protective of your non-work time. For example, I reserve my weekends for gigs, for things like this, and then for downtime with my dog and my husband. And I don't
Yeah.
work weekends. And if students email me or text me on the weekend, they don't get a response until Monday.
Yeah.
Most of them know that by now.
Yeah. Ugh, it's challenging finding that balance. And
The struggle is real.
I find myself, one of the reasons that I kind of chose to go to a similar path where I'm running my own show over the pandemic and having that realization as things are kind of restarting again, I'm having to remind myself now, why did you decide to do this? Remember that. Right, you wanted to take care of yourself more, so it's a real struggle, especially for those of us. I think our work, we are so passionate about it, and it's so it feeds our soul so much that sometimes it's really hard to separate it, you
Yeah.
know especially, like, my spouse has a job that he likes, but it's not like he doesn't love it. He's not super passionate about it. So I think he's had to learn to deal with the fact that, I just love what I do so much that it really bleeds into just my whole personal space. So it's
Yeah.
hard, so hard.
Right.
Um, so what is the greatest piece of advice that you've been given?
The greatest piece of advice I've been given was when I was visiting Nashville and I went to the Bluebird Cafe and heard one of their songwriters round. And I got to talk to one of the performing artists afterwards. And I asked him, hey, I'm a young singer songwriter just kind of starting out in putting myself out there and gigging and stuff like that. What's your advice to me? And he said, if there's anything else in the world that you can do and be good at, do that instead. And if
Yeah.
you can't, welcome to the music scene. He said, he literally said, welcome to Nashville. I mean, I don't think he realized that I didn't live there, but his actual words were, if there's nothing else you can do, welcome to Nashville. If you can do anything else, do that instead.
Yep.
And that was great advice because um, you were talking about how like your work and your personal life are so intertwined, and I mean, I am a musician, I am a songwriter. If you stripped that away from me, I would need a lot of therapy and be doing a hard scramble because I don't know who I would be without the arts. So I was like, you know, it was kind of two sides to the coins. I kind of answered. I got my cake and I ate it too. I answered both of those, the yes and the no.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you can do? No, I was born to be a musician. It's there's other things I'm good-ish at, but this is like there's music and then there's everything else. Like never take
Yeah.
me bowling. I'm terrible. Unless you want an easy win, then take me bowling. That's just an example that I use. But there's music, and then there's every other career path. I knew it was going to be
Yeah.
music. But then I also went, I don't want to have to rely on gigs and feeling desperate to have to take every gig, even if it's driving, you
Mm.
know, over 3 hours both ways to play a couple songs that I have to learn the night before and then throw myself in a car and go out and do that. Like I can comfortably say no to that because um, I'm my entire income is music related, but I have a teaching studio.
Yeah.
So that provides me with that cushion of when I'm not gigging so much, when the pandemic happened and there were no gigs, all I was losing was my little cherry on the top income. I could still do virtual shows and live streams and stuff like that, but I wasn't actually going out to venues and getting paid. But I didn't lose any students. So I kind of had a fallback that was still within the realm of the direction that I wanted my life to head in. So
Yeah.
I kind of really got the best of both worlds. But that advice sticks with me, and I think that it's
Mhm.
true of all of us because you got to grow thick skin and a backbone if you want to be in the arts, and you have to get okay with having doors closed in your face hundreds of times before
Mhm.
one opens, and kicking at and screaming at a wall that's not going to move, And sometimes eventually you find a way up the wall or around it, or you get a new wall. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But sometimes I go off on a tangent and I'm like, how did we get here?
I know, that's okay. Me too. Well, I'll jump in because we are going to start to wrap up as we're running out of time here. It's gone so fast. So we're going to finish out with our intro song. And I wanted to say that as we were putting together Voices Amped, we were going through our different guest artists that we've worked with, and that's kind of the first season of by the way, you are wrapping up our first season of Voices Amped.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we knew in our first season that we really wanted to bring on to Voices Amped all of these amazing women that we have worked with over the years, either as workshop leaders or worked in Voices Heard or different things. So we knew that that's kind of what our first season was going to be about. And so, of course, the first person that came to all of our heads about being featured as our kind of theme song was you. And so Vanessa sent us a few different thoughts and options, and I'm Doing Okay really spoke to us at the time, all of the leadership team, just because we had gone through it with the pandemic, and we had decided to gain our independence and pursue our own not-for-profit and pivot the name of the Girl Project to Voices Amplified. And they were just gone through a lot, but we saw that we were doing okay, and we were ready for it. And we're like, we're ready for this. It's been rough, but we're doing okay. So thank you for the gift of your song. We're so grateful. So what we're really excited about, because of how the intro settled, we decided to go with an instrumental version. So this is exciting for us to share with our listeners the lyrics that really provided the inspiration. While we loved the tune of the song, the lyrics really provided that inspiration. Do you have anything that you want to tell us about the song before you play?
Yeah, so I wrote this song when I was going through some major life shifts. And I loved how you said something about gaining your independence, I think was the wording you used.
Yeah.
It is a hard fought battle. And chances are that if there's something that you need to break free from, whether it's a work situation or a bad relationship or addiction, um, know that it's going to be a battle. If it's worth fighting for, it's not going to come easily, and chances are you won't get out unscathed, but you can still get out. So yeah, these words still speak to me, and I'm glad that they speak to other people too, because it's like you can look back and be like, okay, yeah, that was hard. It was maybe harder than I thought it was going to be. If I knew how hard it was going to be at the time, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But I'm the person that I am today, and I have the freedom that I have today because I went through that. And so the bumps and the bruises and the battle scars are worth it.
Yeah. All right. And with that, let's listen to the full version of I'm Doing Okay.
Doing okay. I'm doing alright. Didn't know I had so much fight in me till I had to fight. I got friends who love me. I got songs to write, so I'm doing okay. I'm doing alright. There'll be bumps and bruises along the way, but all these battle scars are gonna fade away. I know they come one
like a applause sound cue here. Woo-hoo-hoo. That was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your musical gifts with us today. And every single one of our episodes, as we play that music in our intro, really is a gift, and we are so grateful for that.
Okay, thank you. I'm so grateful too.
We're going to wrap up this interview with some James Lipton type rapid response questions.
Ooh, I love it.
Okay, so and I know that we don't share these questions, so you're just ready for them and
Love it.
can answer them as rapidly as you can. All right, here we go.
Okay.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Watching cult documentaries.
What's your favorite sound?
The the sliding of guitar strings. Most people hate it. I love it.
You love that sound. What's your least favorite sound?
Snoring. I won't name names.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
If I were not a musician, I would be in cult psychology.
Cult psychology. Okay. If you could bring anyone back from the dead, who would it be?
Oh gosh, I was not ready for this. Bring anyone back from the dead. I don't know. Pass. There's people I want to meet, but I think they're all living.
Okay.
Give me a couple years until they pass away, and I'll bring them back.
Okay.
Like, I really want to meet Joni Mitchell, but she's still kicking it.
She's still well, okay, good. So we'll know that when Joni Mitchell dies, that's who you want to bring back to life. Okay, great, good. What do you want people to say about you when you are gone?
Oh gosh, well that's in my song Livin'. I want people to say she put it out there and she left every song on the stage and did all the things that she set out to do.
Yeah, that's great. What turns you on? Not in, necessarily a sexual way. What turns you on?
Good music.
Good music. And what turns you off?
Bad music. Oh, the Beastie Boys.
The Beastie Boys.
That is not music. They do not sing.
Yeah, well, that is true.
I literally turn the radio off. That turns me off so much that I turn the radio off when they come on. I'm like, no, thank you.
You cannot do it. Okay, probably the most important of the rapid response question, our last rapid response question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Action, thriller, rom-com, or documentary?
Oh gosh. Okay. If we're talking 2021, it's got to be documentary because people are getting really good at making documentaries and they're a lot less boring than they used to be.
Yes.
And I love like murder mystery documentaries and cult. We've revealed I like have done a lot of research on various cults and I find that very fascinating. However, in its heyday, rom-com. The problem is that rom-coms aren't good like they used to be.
I
In the
know.
90s and early O's, they were great. And
Yeah.
now they're like that genre is dead. There is no longer rom-com. Things that people try to pass off as rom-com are not. I think the
No.
problem is that they tried to get men to watch rom-coms, and so they put like a bunch of like just really dirty, crass humor in it,
Yeah.
which has its place, but and men still don't like those movies anyway. So they
Right.
might as well just go back to writing them for women.
That
That is
I
my
would
free
tend to
advice
agree.
to Hollywood.
Would tend to agree. Well, thank you so much. It was a true pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Can you remind our listeners where they can find you and your music?
Yes, so you can find me on social media. On Facebook, I'm Vanessa Davis Music. On Instagram, I'm at Songwriter Vanessa. And on YouTube, Vanessa Davis Music. My EP is out on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever that is, various other things that I've never heard of. And the EP is called Pretty Little Cabin, a quarantine EP. And I do want to mention there's this really cool feature now on social media that you can attach music to your story. I think you can do it in both Facebook and Instagram. So if you're like vibing to my music, you can attach a little clip of my song, and other people, when they see your status, can hear my music.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, for certain, that was going to appear on the Voices Amplified social media here very, very soon.
Yay.
So thanks again, and thanks for listening.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, listeners, and our guest for sharing the space with us. If you don't want to miss our next episode and you'd like to follow our work, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Voices Amped. Voices Amped is part of our arts activism initiative, Voices Amplified. Our team is me, Jenny Benavides, Vanessa Becker-Weig, Ellie Clark, Dr. Margaret McGladry, and our intern and editor, Kennedy Johnson. If you have any questions that you'd like to hear from future guests, or if you ever have questions for us, hit us up on social media or email us on our website, voicesamplified.net. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you can watch all of our interviews on YouTube if you search and subscribe to Voices Amplified. We'd like to thank Lauren Rourke for our podcast art, Tiffany DuPont Novak for our logo design, and Vanessa Davis for her beautiful underscore, I'm Doing Okay. You can follow her music at Songwriter Vanessa. We'll see you next time, everyone.